I'm Alan Johnson, KU2Y, and this is the CubeSatSim mainboard part 2 video where we continue the build. Now, we've just completed the testing part of part 2 where we plugged in the Raspberry Pi Zero W, we plugged in the charging cable, and we verified that all 3 of the LEDs work. And also we tested out the push button. So now we're ready to continue, and I have the step-by-step instructions pulled up here. And first thing we want to do is install these purple INA 219 boards, which are the current and voltage sensors. So first we're going to install 4 of them on the bottom of the PC board. Each of these sensors has a little breakaway header that we're going to use to mount it, and usually they also come with these little screw terminals, but we don't use them, so you can just get rid of them. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is solder the pin header onto the board, like so. And as before, whenever I have something that has multiple pins, I'm just going to do 1 pin, and then I'm going to check it to make sure that it is the way I want it to be. That looks pretty good. Maybe it's leaning back a little bit, not quite at right angles. So I can fix that just by applying a little heat. Let's see if that looks better. That's better. That looks like it's at right angles. So now I'm ready to do all the other pins. And notice that I did the longer side of the breakaway header facing up. Okay, so let's have a look at that, make sure everything is good. Looks good. So that is 1 complete. Now I just need to do 4 more. Almost there. Too far. Okay. Good. Oh, it's interesting that pin slipped. Okay. Let's apply a little heat and a little pressure here. Here we go. Okay, and one more for this bottom side. Okay. So that is the 4 boards that are going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bottom here. Now, if you look on these boards, they have a little address pad here. One's labeled A0, the other's labeled A1. This allows you, these are devices that sit on the I2C bus, and those pads allow you to set different addresses, so they're independently addressable. So there are 2 bits of the address that are settable, so that means you can have 4 of them on each I2C bus, and the CubeSatSim uses 2 I2C buses. So let's go ahead and set those. So let's get the first one ready here. So this first one, I'm going to put a bridge on pad A0 and no bridge on A1. So they're really tiny. Something that I find works pretty well is just to put a little solder on the tip of the iron and then just touch the iron on there. And that leaves just enough. Just see that there's a bridge there on A0. Okay. Next one, I'm going to put a bridge on A1. Go. And this next one, I'm going to put a bridge on both A0 and A1. Here we go. Looks good. And then this final one has no bridges. So that's all four permutations. So let's do this one on the top left here of the back side first. And on the PCB it says A0 no jumper A1 bridged. So A0 no jumper A1 bridge, that's this one that I made. And now it's important that I put it in the right one here. So I need to flip it around and put it like that. I use the putty here underneath it just to hold it in place. Okay. So that has no bridge on A0 and it's got a bridge on A1. So that's the right address for that one. And so now I'm ready to flip it over and solder it. So there's a second one here on the other side, but it's offset to the right, and it uses those pins. So these are the pins here. And again, I'm going to solder just one pin. And then I'm going to take a look at it and make sure that it's in position, make sure it's in the right place. Yep, looks good. Okay, so now I'm going to solder the other pins. Here we go. So that looks good. Let's look at the solder joint there. Yep, that looks good. And now I can remove the putty. Okay. So let's go ahead and do the rest. The one on the right here says A0 bridged, A1 bridged. So that's this one here. And again, just looking carefully, it doesn't go this way, it goes this way. Okay, next one, A0 bridged only, so that's this one. Okay. And then finally, A0 and A1, no jumper, so that's this one. Okay, so that is all 4 of the INA 219 boards installed on the bottom, and I think that actually completes all the components that have to be installed on the bottom. You can see there's plenty of holes here, but there's no outlines of parts. Okay, so next step then on the instructions is to install the 7 diodes, the 1N5817 Schottky diodes. And they are installed on the top. We can see D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, D6, and D7. Okay, so these are the diodes for D1 through D7, and they're black, coated in plastic here, and they have 5817, 1N5817 written on it. It's a little hard to see. Also, there is a silver band on one side, and that indicates the polarity, because a diode only permits current to flow in one direction. So we need to look at the symbol on the circuit board with the arrow, and in this case the arrow here for D1 is pointing to the right, so that means that this is the correct polarity since the band is on the right side. Now all the diodes on this board are going to be mounted vertically, so I'm going to make it vertical and then bend it over. And now I insert it in the D1 spot there. Okay, and you can see it is ready to go. Just going to give the pins a little bend here. Double check, make sure its polarity is correct. Yep, everything looks good. Okay, so that looks good. And having done that, I can now carefully cut off the excess leads here. Okay, D1 complete. Now just go ahead and do the others. And with diode D3 here, I'm actually going to do it the other way just to give a little more space on the board. And then finally D7 up here. Okay, so they are all mounted. And I'm going to go to the back here, and I'm just going to bend the leads a little bit on each of them so they stay in place. Okay, I think that looks good. Sometimes they pop up a little bit. Push them down a bit. Okay, we're ready to solder them. Okay. So I'll trim the excess leads. Okay. So all 7 diodes are now installed. All right, so that was that step. Next step is to install the micro JST 2-pin connectors, and I want to install 8 of these. So here they are. They're for connecting the wires to the solar panels and the battery. One thing to note is that one side does have this slot, and you need to look on the circuit board to see which way. Basically, the slot always faces outwards. And I want to install 8 of these. So I'm going to basically install all of them except this one here, there. So let me put one of them in here and just double check that I've got the slot correct. That looks right. And we'll just give it a little putty here to hold it in place. Okay. Continue and do the other 8 here. So I'm going to work my way around the outside, and I'll do these 2 at once since they're together. Oops, got a little bridge there. Okay. Let's have a look. Looks good. Okay. He's tilted a little bit. See that? So I'm going to try to straighten him by applying some heat and some pressure. I think that's better. Yep. So the last 2. Oops, one I almost put in backwards here. See how that one is in backwards? Also, when you put it in backwards, the rectangle doesn't line up properly. Let's try the right way. There we go. Okay. Looks good. So we've put 8 of them in. We've just left this one here off, but all the rest of them are installed. So that completes that step. And then finally, we need to install 4 more of the INA 418s, this time on the top. So we're going to place them here on the top, those 4 positions, and then we're going to solder them on the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that. And we'll do this 8 the same way we did the other 8. First solder the pin headers, and then we'll set the jumpers for the address. And then we will solder them on the board. Let's have a look. Okay, just this one needs a little touch up. There we go. Okay, so that is all 8 of them done. And now I'm just going to set the jumpers on them. Okay, so set both jumpers on this first one. Just set jumper A0 on that one, sorry, A1, and just jumper A1 on there. And this 4th one has no jumpers on it at all. Okay. So let's place these. Let's see, if we start here in the top left, no jumpers. So that means it is this one. Okay. Next one, A0 has a jumper. A0, so that's this one. Okay. Next one, A1 has a jumper, so that's this one. It's good there. It's a little bit, I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of hitting that diode there. I can either just leave it, it doesn't hurt anything for it to be slightly up in the air, or I can just bend it ever so slightly, like that. And that gets it back in place. And then finally, both of them bridged. Is this one? Okay, so all four of them held in place with the putty. Just double check again the addresses. Yep, looks good. Okay. Okay, so let's just do a little inspection. Looks good. So I can just remove the putty. Putty's a little stuck there. Okay. All right, I will get the rest of that putty out of there. So this is the end of mainboard part 2 assembly.